So, good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing? Come on, how are we doing? Yes, admittedly, it's the third day in. You've got a dodgeball tournament to survive later on, so you need that energy, folks. So good afternoon. My name's James Tedrick. I'm the product manager for Survey123. With me is Sathya Prasad, who is one of our lead developers, as well as our lead DevOps person currently with Survey123. And we're going to talk about what we are planning to do to support on-premise installation. This is stuff that we are actively working on currently. We have demos. We hope they work. We're not sure. We'll find out. So, Survey123, most people know it as a phone app. Most people know it as a website. Most people know Survey123 Connect as a desktop application that lets you author surveys. Behind that is a lot of other components in addition. So we have the mobile app, the desktop, and the website. We also have an API that's hosted with the website. This is what actually transforms the XLS file, that Excel file, into the form that we use inside the mobile application. Obviously, we also have documentation. And then finally, we have to have a way to get the programs to you, the downloadable, installable files. When we're talking about working on premise, the fundamental goal is you want Survey123 to work with, in your case, your portal. You want to be able to publish forms into your portal. You want to be able to submit data to your portal. You want to be able to sign in with your enterprise logins on your portal. You want this functionality often to work behind a firewall. You may have a requirement to have no connection to the public internet. Certainly many US federal agencies have this. You may need to have no connection to anything outside of your internal network. No ArcGIS Online, no survey123.arcgis.com. That being said, there are many cases where you may not need to have that complete disconnection. So with Survey123, we're looking at supporting a couple of different scenarios of varying complexity to support the different use case requirements. Currently, we support ArcGIS Enterprise or portal installations with the Survey123 mobile application and Survey123 Connect for ArcGIS. Both of those can connect to your portal, publish forms to your portal, get the forms from them, fill it out, and submit data. We also support the installation files. You can go to our site, survey123.arcgis.com, download the Survey123 Connect installers for the operating systems you use, download the Survey123 applications for the platforms you use, and host those locally. You can sideload, for example, Android. The one exception to this is iOS, because iOS is super happy fun in terms of security. And so consequently, you can't download the iPhone application and just install it, sideload it. You have to use the Apple Store in that situation. Is clarification or no? So the first scenario we want to support is what we call a hybrid implementation. This will take the existing Survey123 website and essentially configure it so instead of going to ArcGIS Online, it goes to your portal. When we do this, what we're doing is loading the Survey123 webpage into your browser. And then you can go from your browser to your internal network. This is pretty standard with all web applications. Once you get a web application loaded from wherever it is, all of the requests and all of the processing that's happening is happening in your browser. So the Survey123 website, even though it knows that you want to communicate with your portal, never actually talks with your portal. It just gives your browser instructions in what to do, and then your browser talks to the portal. Does that make sense? If you develop web applications, hopefully it does make sense, because that's the normal pattern. But many people who use web applications, that's actually surprising. This hybrid solution will require survey authors using Survey123 Connect to still talk to the online API. So there's still a little bit of data, pretty much just the form information, no user data going to ArcGIS Online or Survey123. This we want to support because it's extremely simple from you as an organization to implement. You just need to tell your portal that Survey123 exists, and then when you log into Survey123, you need to tell Survey123 that your portal exists. So you don't have to install any software. It's really all configuration. Let me hop over and do a quick example with this. So this is one of my coworkers' this is one of my coworkers' portals. I'm currently logged in, and if I went to my content, you'll see that I've published several surveys, many of them with the title form, into the portal. So these are surveys that exist on this portal. I'm going to go to the Survey123 website. This is our under development site, and we've added a parameter that lets us tell it which portal we want to use. So I'm going to now load this by telling survey123.arcgis.com to go and configure yourself to use that portal. We'll reload the page, and you can see we now have what we're currently calling dev mode, and you can see that we're saying that we're going to point to this portal. Whoops. Looks like I need to maybe do a refresh or load because there's no sign-in button. So let me...
Can you use QA?
Yeah. Actually, I think I just need to do an incognito window.
Okay.
When we switch around sites like this, there we go. There's the sign in. So I'll sign in, and you can see here, right here, this is the portal's sign-in page, right? We're not looking at ArcGIS Online. And if you could somehow get to his account, you can see that we have many nice little nifty usernames to go into. So I'm going to sign in, and we're back at our survey gallery. So you can see that these are the surveys that are on that portal. These are not the surveys that are in ArcGIS Online. Currently, we don't have full support for this across all the functionality. So if I go to a survey, for example, I guess this is the best one. I can use the data tab to take a look at the survey responses as it loads in. Okay, looks like I had a little problem grabbing that service. Well, as I said, we're under development and we don't have full support, but it's attempting, what it's trying to do now is attempting to query that survey. I'll have to take a look. Let me switch over, just maybe there was some code in dev that's blocking it.
Log out.
Yeah, that we need to do is sign out, sign in quick. Whoops, I went into the wrong organization. So, my apologies, I'm getting myself a little tangled. Just to sum up, you saw me connect into the portal. Currently, we've been having support with the data and analyze tabs. We also want to have full support with the ability to author a survey, as well as change the survey sharing sessions as well. So that's really briefly connecting into the portal. And as I said, this is all under development, which is why the demo doesn't go off smoothly. So switching, the next phase that we want to support is an on-premise installation of the Survey123 website with into your own IT network. Obviously, this is heavier than connecting the portal to that, what I just showed with the configuration of the website to the portal. This means installing a piece of software, mainly the Survey123 website as well as the API, into your own IST network. When that happens, everything is happening behind the firewall here. So there's no connection to ArcGIS Online. There's no connection, no using the REST API, no necessarily using the base maps if you don't want. As part of this, because the Survey123 website consists of the web pages as well as a server, as well as the REST API, which runs on Python, it's got several different components, and we want to make sure that the experience is as easy as we can in terms of installation. So we're looking at a container technology to install the components. Let Sathya talk a little bit more about what a container is. You probably have heard about it in a couple of minutes.
So before I start, I just wanted to check with you and see how many of you want Survey123 to work completely on premise. Okay. So when we say that, basically you're kind of choosing yourself. I mean, you are actually choosing an option that is not as simple as 1, 2, 3, right? It will be 1, 2, 3 after you do the rest of the steps. Okay. So just remember that. And as James said, Survey123 ultimately is very easy to use, but behind the scenes it was complex for us to build it because we had to make it easy for you. And because of that, we have a lot of components that is behind the scenes. And when we say we want to install all these things on your machine or on your setup, like what does your setup have? Do you have Windows? Do you have Windows Server? Do you have Macs? Do you have some sort of a Linux environment? Do you have one, Linux and a Windows environment? Those are all the challenges that's come into our planning. So yes, we could actually say, yeah, you know what, we'll give you a Windows installer and an IIS thing and this and that. But I think we want to still keep the simplicity of it together because we don't want you to worry about all the things we do behind the scenes to make it work. So a good compromise to this is something called as a container. How many of you know what is a container? Maybe a few. I'm going to throw in a few words. Maybe you'll recognize it. How many of you know what is a Docker? Oh, there you go. Maybe a couple more. So a container, how many of you know what is a virtual machine? See, that's more reasonable. So this is sort of the next generation of virtual machines. So a container is a piece of configuration that we can actually give you that can sort of create a virtual machine on the fly. And not only do that, it can not only just create a virtual machine, it can actually install all the software and all the pieces we need inside it and actually make it ready to go. So it's like this sweet spot between using a virtual machine or using the cloud. You can actually keep using a virtual machine, but you can allow us to configure the virtual machine exactly the way we want it to be configured. And because of that, you don't have to do a lot of work behind the scenes except run the container that we want you to run. Okay? So it is sort of a lightweight virtual machine. It's not a full-fledged virtual machine, and it can be run on any environment, including your desktop. Just for fun, you can just run it on my dev machine, or you can run the same thing on your server infrastructure. For us, it doesn't make a difference. And containers by design are cross-platform in the sense that containers usually run across Windows, Linux, and Mac. And because of that, we really don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure as to where you need to run it. Okay? And the ease of maintenance is also something that is very, very important to us. That is, suppose we make some change or we have actually done some bug fixes, how do we deliver these things to you? And if we deliver these things to you, don't you just want to just apply it easily? Or here is a scenario that James keeps reminding me that you might have actually installed a version of Survey123 and you might have gone on the field with it, right? There's also already a data collection process going on. Suddenly we release a newer version of Survey123. So how do you actually make the switch? Do you make the switch? Maybe not. Maybe you have a production version and you have a sort of a testing version going on, because maybe you want the actual field work to get completed before you upgrade. There might also be scenarios where you have two versions of Survey123, the entire system of Survey123 working. The released one and the new one that you just downloaded, because you still have to test it and certify it for your organizations. So all these actually creates a set of challenges for you guys in maintaining it and infrastructure and IT support and all those things. And the container technology actually helps us solve that problem. It is actually making it much simpler to maintain and run these things even side by side. So you can typically look at running multiple versions of Survey123 if you want on side by side. So that actually gives us a great option to deliver these things to you. So there are many vendors out there who actually do container technology. One of the popular ones is Docker, and there's one other company called Vagrant. Have you heard of Vagrant? How many of you know Vagrant? The same guys who already know about it. Yeah, so I mean it's just a matter of you guys actually getting to know these things, and once you do it, it actually looks pretty familiar. It seems like a good thing to do. So we chose Vagrant as our provider for various reasons. And what I wanted to do is I just wanted to give you a quick demonstration of how this would actually look and feel when you guys do it yourself. It's not fully ready. We're still doing development, but I just wanted to give you guys a flavor so that you can give us some feedback and see if this is something that can work for you guys. Okay? Ready? Okay. So the first thing what you will actually receive is something like this. This is called a Vagrant file. Obviously, I'm not going to give you the code. I'll give you a file. So there will be an instruction called install Vagrant and please run this Vagrant file. Okay. So that is something that we will tell you to take Survey123 offline. Okay. Sounds simple, isn't it? Install Vagrant and run a Vagrant file. What does it really mean? What it really means is you install Vagrant. It's actually pretty easy. If you go and try to download it, they give you whatever platform you want. And once you download this, we can actually come here and go to that folder. And I have the Vagrant file right there. Do you guys see the Vagrant file? So I can actually say, you know what? It's actually the command is Vagrant up, and I will actually provision it. So it's a command to say please start fresh. Provision means please start fresh. And once I do that, what you are going to see is a bunch of things that happens. So basically it is going to bring up a virtual machine. It will do all the port mapping for me. So whatever port we want to expose to access Survey123, it is going to go and download Apache, Java, Python, and configure all those things. It will download the latest version of Survey123 source code. It will download our API. It will configure all those things. It will download Node.js. It will run all our scripts and get everything ready for you. If you see here, it is already doing all those things behind the scenes. And you have to pay this price only once because it is actually getting set up right now. But once it gets set up and there is nothing to update, it will immediately start. Okay? See here, it's actually going there. It's installing PyForm. It's going through S3, Amazon S3, downloading a file. It is copying it to the home folder. It is updating my NPM files, which is some dependencies that we have. And then it is actually using forever, and it says it's done. How cool is that? Just by running that file, the entire Survey123 setup was actually placed on your machine, up and running from start to finish. Okay? And we believe it cannot get easier than this. So hence, we want to try out this technology and see if this is the best way to deliver these things to you. We think so. We want your feedback on that. So we will be, reaching out to a few folks and actually showing it. So what exactly happened, right? Let me spend a little bit more time. If you actually see here, what exactly happened was I have exposed port 98, 98 and 99, 99 to you guys. This file is available to you. You can map it to whatever you want, okay? For a demo, I've done 88, 99. The idea here is this is open enough so that if your IT staff or if your network has very specific requirements, you can actually take advantage of it. Because we always know when we try to go on premise, We are working with your network, not our network. So there's lots of rules and security and regulations around it. You guys know best. We'll give you a simple way to do it, and you can go and configure it. And once you make a change, all you have to do is run the Vagrant up again, and it is just going to reconfigure itself. Okay? So through this technology, we can actually distribute a software appliance. So what we ended up creating is almost an entire software package for you. And it also makes it very disposable and cheap, right? So you can just create and destroy, right? There is no cost to these things. And because of that, it actually makes it extremely maintainable, and you can also run a lot of these things side by side. Just imagine I had given you 2 Vagrant files. You had one version of Survey123 and you get a next version of Survey123. All you had to do was change the ports, and in one set of ports you would have gotten an old version, and one set of ports you got a new version. Then you can actually choose to ask your app or connect to work with that version. Are you guys getting it? So what just happened? Everything was actually running, and it's finished its job, right? And behind the scenes, you really don't want to know, but I'm just showing you all these things happened behind the scenes. Okay? You don't want to know that, but that's what happened. So we should appreciate that a lot of work has been done. Now, if I actually go to my local host, and since it's 98, I believe it was actually running, and
API,
yeah. So there you go. So this is the API that got started because I just ran the Vagrant file. You know what is this API? This is actually the API which is powering the entire Survey123 conversion process. Whenever used, this is the most powerful thing that we have. All right, and that whole thing was just set up with just by running one command. Okay, it didn't even care it was running on a Mac. It would have just run the same way on a Windows. Not only that, you see the name localhost. Localhost is something that is running on my machine right now. If you had run it on a server environment, or if your machine had a name, you could have used that name to access it. What does that mean? That means that you are hosting your own version of Survey123. It can be accessible from anywhere with any client you have. It's just like how you connect to survey123.arcgis.com, you can have mysurvey123.xyz.com/API/version, and it just works the same way. Are you guys getting it? It is just running on that machine, and so whatever that machine is hosted as or configured as, you get those things for free. Essentially, we are just tagging along the way. And let me see if we also have 99.99. Thank you. We also have one more port exposed. Not too sure if it ran, but let me just test. So you can also see, okay, I'm not configured my website correctly, but if you can also see that we have also hosted a web environment along the way. Okay, and because of that, our websites, our documentation, and all the other stuff will also light up. So you didn't have to do a lot of things behind the scenes to get all these things working. Okay, so this is one way we are actually, or we're pretty serious about it. We are going to deliver this as our first version of an on-premise install, and once you get all these things working, all you have to do is you need to come to your Survey123 Connect, and when you're actually publishing your surveys, or when you're actually converting these surveys, instead of hitting arcgis.com, you will be hitting whatever machine, your own thing, /API, right? Because the whole point of this is to not go outside your security, your wall of security. Okay, so this is only needed for publishing process. This is not needed for consumption, because how do you consume your surveys? When it's on premise, how do you consume your surveys? You connect to your portal, right? The consumption or the Survey123 app is actually talks to your portal. This setup and this website is needed for your analysis of your surveys or publishing of your surveys. Okay, and once I do that, I can actually come to a form and then actually run the form. You guys get the idea? It's going to go and hit that endpoint that we just have. Okay. Let's actually switch out and.
Yep. So, what are we looking at? What are we looking at in terms of support on premise? We already, as I said, we already had the application. The Connect desktop application, I'm just seeing a typo there. We're bringing in the website and that form API. We're still not quite certain we need to bring the documentation in. If you have a requirement to have on-premise installation of the documentation, let us know, and we can begin to look at adding that in. We're also starting to explore, this is very preliminary for us, what we would call right now an extremely disconnected deployment would look like. This is a situation where you are going out with a team into a very remote place and need to have everything work on one box and also store the data temporarily on your one box until you can get back to the office and upload the portal. We think within the US market even, we don't even know if that's actually a very applicable deployment scenario, but in talking with a lot of our international people, there seems to be a need for this type of method. So again, we're looking at what is sort of the bare minimum that we need to deploy on a computer. Is it just the API? Is it the API plus some basic web pages, plus some form of database to send information to? We're trying to understand that. If you have needs that resemble this, going really disconnected for long periods of time, let us know, and we want to work with you to gather the requirements that understand that. So, in general, we're trying to support on-premise. If there are requirements here that you haven't seen us present, please let us know. We've got to actually clear out of this room in about 4 minutes because these lovely gentlemen in the back are about to come in and replace us. But we'll be at the Survey123 booth just after that. Thank you.